All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something really special, I think.
Okay.
This is Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
this came out in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's based on a book called Schindler's Ark
Mm-hmm.
by Thomas Keneally.
Oh, okay.
And the movie itself is shot entirely in black and white, which even for 1993 was kind of unusual.
Right.
And it deals with one of the, obviously the darkest chapters in human history, which is the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But it also shows like the incredible resilience of the human spirit and how one person can really make a difference.
Yeah. I love that about this film.
Yeah.
It's it's not shying away from the really difficult stuff, but it also shows that there's hope and there's possibility for good even in the darkest of times.
Yeah. And I think our mission today is to go
Yeah.
beyond sort of the, oh yeah, this is a great movie, and actually unpack why this film continues to resonate so powerfully today. What makes it so unique and what you can take away from
Yeah,
it,
absolutely.
even decades later.
It's a film that stays with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it multiple times, and every time I watch it, I'm just struck by its power.
Yeah.
It's a thing that makes you think and feel.
So let's talk about Oskar Schindler, because he's our main character.
Okay.
And I think what's so interesting about him is that he's not your typical hero.
No, not at all.
He starts off as this charismatic businessman, a member of the Nazi Party.
Mm-hmm.
And he seems to be driven more by profit than anything else.
Exactly. He's flawed.
Yeah.
He's ambitious, and he seems almost oblivious at first to the horrors that are happening around him.
Right. And that makes his transformation even more compelling, I think.
Absolutely.
Because it's not like he has this sudden epiphany.
Right.
It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
And I think it's fueled by a couple of things.
Right.
One is obviously what he sees happening around him.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is his interaction with his Jewish accountant, Itzhak Stern.
Right. Stern becomes this kind of moral compass for him, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
He challenges Schindler's worldview and forces him to confront the human cost of his actions.
Yeah, and I think Spielberg does a brilliant job of putting the audience in Schindler's shoes.
Yeah.
Like you're watching these two men debate, and you're kind of forced to confront those same questions.
Right. Could you be swayed by Stern's arguments?
Yeah.
It's a really powerful dynamic.
So then comes the turning point, and this is a scene that I think is seared into everyone's memory who's seen the film.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto. And Spielberg doesn't hold back here at all.
No.
He shows the horrific reality of what happened.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
But it's necessary, I think, to show the true horror of the situation.
And amidst all of this chaos,
right,
we see one image that's just burned into our minds.
Oh, yeah.
It's the girl in the red coat.
The girl in the red coat, that's right.
And it's the only color in the entire film.
It's such a powerful visual choice.
Yeah.
It's like this punch to the gut, in the midst of all this black and white.
So why do you think Spielberg did that?
I think it's a symbol of innocence. Amidst all this brutality, this little girl in her red coat.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I think for Schindler, it's this awakening.
Yeah.
It's this realization of the human cost of what's happening around him.
Right. He can no longer ignore it.
Yeah. And then from that point on, he completely shifts gears. He creates his list.
The list.
He spends his fortune to bribe Nazi officials to protect his workers.
He risks everything.
Yeah, and it's not about business anymore.
No.
It's about saving lives.
It's about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
No matter the cost.
And even the end of the film, when the war is over,
yeah,
he has this breakdown. He's just racked with guilt.
He wishes he could have done more.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
But it also shows his humanity.
Yeah.
He's not this perfect hero. He's a flawed man who did the best he could.
And I think that regret makes his heroism even more impactful.
Absolutely.
Because it's so real.
It's relatable.
Yeah.
We all have regrets. We all wonder if we could have done more in certain situations.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Amon Goeth.
Okay.
Who's the SS officer.
Right. The commandant of the Krakow ghetto.
Yeah.
A truly terrifying character.
And I think Ralph Fiennes' performance is just chilling.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's so calm.
Yeah.
So controlled.
Yeah. And it's that calmness, I think, that makes his brutality even more terrifying.
Absolutely.
Because he's not this, screaming over-the-top villain.
Right.
He's just very matter-of-fact about the horrific things he does.
Yeah, he's almost charming at times.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more unsettling.
And I think this is where Spielberg really tackles that concept of the banality of evil.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that ordinary people, under certain circumstances,
Yeah.
can become complicit in or even perpetrators of horrific acts.
Right. And that's a really disturbing thought, isn't it?
It is.
That anyone is capable of such evil.
Yeah. And I think Spielberg puts that question right to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at Goeth and you wonder, where's the line?
Yeah.
Could anyone, under the right or wrong pressures, become a Goeth?
It's a question that haunts you
It does.
long after the film is over.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes the film so brilliant.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from these really complex moral questions.
No.
It forces you to grapple with them.
It's a film that stays with you
It does.
and makes you think about your own values and beliefs.
So we've talked about the characters,
Mm.
the stories, the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the filmmaking itself,
Okay.
because I think Spielberg's cinematic brilliance really brings this story to life.
Absolutely. He's a master filmmaker.
And let's start with the most obvious choice, which is the black and white film.
Right.
I mean, this is 1993. Colors everywhere.
Yeah.
But Spielberg decides to shoot this film in black and white. Why do you think?
I think it's a bold choice.
Yeah.
And I think it serves a few purposes.
Okay.
First of all, I think it creates this sense of historical authenticity.
Yeah.
Like we're watching a documentary from that time.
Right.
But I also think it helps to focus our attention on the raw emotions, the faces,
Yeah.
the contrast of light and dark.
It's like he's stripping away all the distraction
Exactly.
and saying, look closer. This is important.
This is real.
Yeah.
This matters.
And I think it also adds this layer of intensity to the film.
Absolutely.
Almost like you're watching a documentary.
Yeah, it makes the experience so much more visceral.
You're right there in the moment.
You're feeling what the characters are feeling.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so let's pause here,
Okay.
and we'll pick up the conversation in part 2,
Sounds good.
where we'll dive even deeper into Spielberg's
Right.
cinematic brilliance.
I'm looking forward to it. So we were talking about the use of black and white film, and you were saying it kind of adds this layer of intensity. It makes it almost like a documentary.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I think it also has this way of kind of heightening the emotional impact of the film.
Right, because you're not distracted by all the colors.
Exactly.
You're forced to focus on the essentials.
Yeah, the faces, the
Yeah.
expressions, the contrast between light and darkness.
Yeah. And that contrast is so important in this film.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it really reflects the moral complexities of the story.
Right, you have Schindler, who starts out in this gray area.
Yeah.
You know, he's a Nazi party member,
He's profiting from the war.
but then he gradually moves towards this kind of moral clarity.
Right. He starts to see the humanity of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
He starts to understand the true horror of what's happening.
And that transformation is so beautifully captured in the way Spielberg uses the camera.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that scene we talked about earlier with the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto,
Mhm.
and we see Schindler watching from the hilltop.
Yeah, that's a powerful scene.
It is. And you see his detachment at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
like he's just observing it from a distance.
Almost like it's a spectacle.
Yeah. And then as the scene unfolds, you see the horror dawning on him.
Right.
And Spielberg does this through these close-ups on Schindler's face.
The way his expression changes.
Yeah, it's like we're inside his head.
Yeah, you can see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
He's starting to question everything he thought he knew
And then there's that one shot.
of the girl in the red coat.
Yes.
Oh, man, that gets me every time.
Yeah, me too. It's just this single splash of color.
In this sea of gray.
And it's so jarring.
It's like a punch to the gut,
is.
but it's also so beautiful in a way.
It's haunting.
Yeah, it's like this symbol of innocence amidst all the horror.
And it's such a simple thing.
Yeah, but it's so effective.
It really is.
It's like that one image encapsulates the whole tragedy in a way.
And for Schindler, I think it's a turning point.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like that's the moment when he can no longer deny the reality of what's happening.
Right, he can't just stand by and watch anymore.
Yeah. And that's when he decides to act.
He creates his list.
Yes.
And he starts putting his own life at risk to save others.
It's an incredible transformation.
It really is.
And I think it speaks to the power of human empathy.
Yeah, the power of one person to make a difference.
Even in the face of overwhelming evil.
And that's what makes Schindler's List such a hopeful film in a way.
You know, you're right, because it would have been so easy for Spielberg to just make this a completely bleak and hopeless film.
Oh, yeah.
but he doesn't.
He shows us the darkness,
Yeah.
but he also shows us the light.
Those flickers of humanity.
Yeah, those moments of courage and compassion.
And I think that's ultimately what makes the film so powerful and so enduring.
It's a film that stays with you.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the choices we make
Mm-hmm.
and the impact we have on the world.
Okay, so we've talked about the emotional impact of the film, the historical context,
Yeah,
the ethical dilemmas.
right.
But I want to dive into how Spielberg actually achieves all of this.
Okay.
The filmmaking choices that make Schindler's List such a cinematic masterpiece.
Let's do it.
So we talked about the black and white film,
Right.
but let's unpack that a little bit more.
Okay.
Why do you think Spielberg chose to shoot in black and white?
Well, we talked about the historical authenticity,
Yeah.
but I think it goes beyond that.
Okay.
I think the black and white also serves to kind of strip away the distractions of color,
Mm-hmm.
and it forces us to focus on the raw emotion,
Right.
the stark contrast between light and shadow.
Like he's saying this is not just entertainment.
Exactly.
This is something real.
This is something important.
Yeah.
Something that demands your attention.
And it creates this sense of timelessness.
Yeah.
Like we're peering into the past.
Like we're witnessing these events as they unfolded.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful.
It's a very effective technique for drawing the viewer in.
And making the experience more visceral.
Absolutely.
And then there's the way he uses the camera,
Mm-hmm.
the camera work.
Yeah.
It's not flashy,
No.
but it's so effective.
It's very deliberate.
Yeah.
Every shot is carefully composed.
Like those close-ups on Schindler's face.
Yes.
Or the way he uses these long shots to show the vastness of the ghetto.
The scale of the dehumanization.
Yeah, and the camera work is so crucial in creating the film's emotional impact
Absolutely.
because it allows us to see the world through Schindler's eyes.
Right. We see his initial detachment
Mm-hmm.
and then his growing horror as he witnesses the brutality.
And those long shots of the ghetto,
Yeah.
they're just overwhelming.
They give you this sense of the sheer number of lives that were affected.
The scope of the tragedy.
And it makes you feel so helpless.
Yeah, it's really hard to watch,
But it's important to see.
to understand the magnitude of what happened.
And I think Spielberg does a brilliant job of balancing those two perspectives.
The individual and the collective.
Yes.
The personal and the historical.
It's what makes the film so complex and so nuanced.
Okay, so let's talk about the editing for a second,
Yeah.
because that's another crucial element in creating the film's emotional impact.
The editing is brilliant.
Yeah, it's almost invisible in a way
Yeah.
because it's so seamless.
So well done.
But it's essential in creating the film's pacing.
It's rhythm.
Yeah, and Spielberg balances those moments of intense horror
Yeah.
with moments of quiet
Or
reflection.
moments of human connection.
And it's a roller coaster of emotion.
It is.
But it never feels manipulative.
No, it feels very earned.
Authentic.
And I think those quieter moments,
Yeah.
those moments of respite,
Yeah.
actually make the horrors all the more impactful.
Like that scene where Schindler gives his workers a birthday party.
Yeah.
It's such a brief moment of joy.
Of humanity amidst all the darkness.
And then Spielberg cuts right back to the brutality of the ghetto.
Yeah.
And the contrast is just devastating.
It's brilliant filmmaking.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's all in service of telling this incredibly important story.
So we've talked about the visuals,
Yeah.
camera work,
Mhm.
the editing.
But we can't forget about the music.
Oh, the music.
John Williams' score.
It's one of the most iconic film scores ever written.
It is.
Those haunting violin melodies.
Yeah,
They just stay with you long after the film is over.
they do.
It's like the music is another character in the film.
Yeah, it's like it's telling the story along with the visuals.
And it's so perfectly calibrated to the emotional beats of the film.
Yeah, it underscores the tragedy,
The moments of hope.
the sheer scale of the events that are unfolding.
John Williams is a genius.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
But it's interesting because the music itself isn't overly dramatic
No,
or bombastic.
it's often quite understated,
Yeah.
which I think makes it even more powerful.
It's like the music is whispering the story to us,
Yeah.
adding another layer of emotional depth without overwhelming the visuals.
It's a perfect example of how music can elevate a film to another level.
And I think the fact that the music stays with you long after the film is over
Yeah,
really speaks to the lasting impact of the film itself.
absolutely. Schindler's List is a film that stays with you.
Yeah.
It prompts reflection, it sparks conversation,
It makes you think.
and hopefully it inspires action.
And that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll look at the film's legacy, its impact on culture and on individuals,
All right.
and what it means for us, the viewers.
Yeah.
Even today, decades after its release. Okay, so we talked about how the film was made.
Mhm.
You know, Spielberg's choices, all the technical aspects.
Yeah, the black and white, the music, the camera work.
But I think what's really remarkable about Schindler's List is its lasting impact.
Absolutely.
It's not just a film that you watch and then forget about.
It stays with you.
It's had this ripple effect on our culture, on how we view history, how we tell stories.
Yeah, it's become a part of our collective consciousness.
And I think what's so interesting is that it continues to be relevant even today.
More than ever, I think.
Yeah. So what do you think makes this film so enduring?
Well, for me, it's the film's universality.
Okay.
Yes, it's a historical drama. It's about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But it's also a story about the human spirit.
Right.
About the power of individual choices.
Yeah. And those themes are timeless.
They are.
They speak to us no matter who we are or where we come from.
And I think the film also holds up a mirror to us.
In what way?
Well, it forces us to confront not just the horrors of the past, but also our own capacity for both good and evil.
That's a good point.
It asks us those tough questions.
Yeah.
What would you have done in Schindler's position?
Right.
Would you have had the courage to act?
To risk your own safety for others.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it's been so important in Holocaust education.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's not just a dry recounting of facts and figures.
No.
It's an emotional experience.
Yeah. It personalizes the Holocaust.
Yeah.
It shows us the human faces behind the statistics.
We see the fear, the desperation, but also the resilience.
And it makes the history all the more real.
All the more impactful.
And I think it's been really important in combating Holocaust denial.
Yeah.
Making sure that the world never forgets what happened.
And I think it's also had a huge influence on other filmmakers.
Oh, yeah.
Showing them that you can tackle these difficult subjects with sensitivity and respect.
Right.
Without shying away from the truth.
I mean, think about all the historical dramas that have come out since Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Many of them owe a debt to Spielberg's vision.
It's like he set a new standard.
Yeah, for how to tell these kinds of stories.
How to balance historical accuracy with emotional resonance.
He showed that you could make a film about the Holocaust that was both informative and deeply moving.
A film that could educate and inspire.
Exactly.
Now, of course, the film won a ton of awards.
7 Oscars.
7 Oscars?
Which is amazing.
It is. But I think its impact goes far beyond awards and accolades.
Oh, absolutely.
It's become a cultural touchstone.
People return to it again and again.
Yeah, and they find new meaning in it each time.
It's a film that grows with you.
What do you think is the most powerful element of the film?
Oh, that's tough.
I know there's so much to choose from.
There is.
But for you, what really stays with you?
I think for me, it's the way Spielberg balances the darkness with these glimmers of hope. Yes, it's a film about the worst of humanity.
Yeah.
But it also shows us the best.
Those moments of courage and compassion.
Yeah, and it reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable evil, there is still good in the world.
And it's worth fighting for.
Yes.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
And I think that's a message that resonates with everyone.
I think so, too.
It's a film that challenges us, moves us, and ultimately leaves us with a sense of hope.
A belief that even small acts of kindness can make a difference. And maybe a renewed sense of responsibility to make the world a better place.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Schindler's List, I want to leave our listeners with this thought.
Okay.
This isn't just a film. It's a conversation starter. It's a call to action.
It's a reminder that history isn't just something we read about in textbooks. It's something we learn from, something we carry with us.
Something we have a responsibility to never forget.
And if you haven't seen Schindler's List yet, I encourage you to watch it. And if you have seen it, maybe this deep dive has given you some new things to think about.
New perspective.
And whatever your experience is,
yeah,
share your thoughts. Keep the conversation going.
Because the lessons of Schindler's List are timeless.
They are.
And they're more relevant now than ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.